This week, to give some context, my friend and I, Joel, shot a video about how to do color grading and color correcting. So this is that video.
My name is Joelcaporalemedia. I run a video production company in Wichita, Kansas. Most of the stuff I focus on has to do with either weddings, testimonials, and then corporate brand videos. Andy asked me to talk a little bit about color correcting, color grading, that process. And so color correcting and color grading are two different things. Color correcting, I define it as you're correcting the shot. So sometimes, you shoot with the wrong white balance, you'll shoot the wrong exposure. You might shoot like at 500 ISO instead of 400, so it might be a little overexposed. So that color correcting is going in whatever software you're using to edit and then fix those mistakes. So if your white balance needs to be 5,000 and you shot at 5,500, it's adding 500 points or whatever of the blue. Or if you're 0.2 above in your exposure, you bring that down 0.2 points. That's what color correcting is. Color grading is giving it that nice feel. So if you want like a warm, homey vibe, that'd be color grading. You'd add some warmth to the midtones. If you want a very eerie vibe, maybe it's adding blue to the shadows and green to the highlights. And so that's what I would define as color grading.
I have some footage that just came out of the camera, and we're gonna take a look at that. So from what you described, I heard, starting with color correction, so we're gonna match each clip to a proper exposure.
Yeah.
When we color grade, we add an adjustment layer to change all of the clips that have been fixed individually to a artistic look or feel. But that's the same sort of changes applied to everything, so that we have a unified grade to it. And we can grade everything because they've already been corrected to the same standard.
Yes.
The scopes, or what are things you're looking at here on this?
Yeah, so right now I'm looking at your scopes, and yeah, so waveform is going to be RGB because with your RGB you're going to have values from 0. We're looking at 1023 and 0. So 0 is going to be there is value coming through, but that value is just black. So at 0 you're only getting black, whether it's blue, green, or red. It's all going to be just black. And so at the very top it's going to be, so at this is 1023. So at 1023 you're going to have the fullest extent of that. So you're going to have the full value. So like if it's blue, then your image is going to be pure blue. That information is going to be pure blue or pure green or pure red at the very top. And if you have pure red, green, and blue, then you're going to get white. And so, even if you look in the middle where like these intersect, you'll see kind of like these wide areas.
Okay, so I'm looking at this and I see these 3 white things here, and those are probably...
Yep, those are blown out. So the very top is going to be stuff that's blown out. At the very bottom is going to be your really dark things. And so what I try to do in my color correction is first, I try and make sure the white balance is correct. And kind of like I showed you in Premiere, I mask out a section that should be white. If I don't have a section that should be white, then I mask out the skin tones. And I get my skin tones as correctly as I possibly can.
Something like that should be white.
Yeah, that should be white. And so mess with your tint and white balance so that's perfectly white. No. All right, let's go back to the main image again.
Before the grade?
Yes. Okay, yeah, that looks a lot better.
So before the grade, after
the correction.
Okay, so before the correction, after the correction.
And I would add a little bit of exposure, honestly. Yep.
Oh, this way?
Mm-hmm.
That right?
And drag it to the left at the very top.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah. That looks good, right about there. Ish.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Something like that. And then bring down your highlights, since the right side of your face in the image, or left, is a little blown out. So bring those highlights down. And I'd bring your shadows up just a hair.
No, something like that.
Maybe bring your shadows down just a hair. Yeah, something like that.
And then where we started, boom, correct.
And I would add some saturation as well. Your image is very non-contrasty, so I'd add a little bit of saturation, maybe like 5 points. That's a little. Let's do like 60.
Okay.
Okay.
And so that would be a correction. So we went to a white area. Or first we go to a white area, and we're gonna fix
your tint and white balance.
Tint and white balance.
So that is perfectly white.
Right. So we want our white to look white, color-wise, and then the highs to around 85%. And then the blacks to around 5%, whatever we have at the bottom of our scale.
Yep.
That was great. Let's go to your computer and we'll go through another example.
All right, so this is 2 things of footage that I have. First thing I'm gonna do is look at here, just a white area. Go through like this. Mask, adjust the white area off, and then color correct for the just the white. So
And you throw the mask on because it's blocking all
yes.
the scopes.
So then I can see, what exactly is. And if we look, the red, green, and blue, which give us those values so we can see what's going on. If we want it perfectly white, bring it to about there. We'll look right here, and I want my pure whites at about 85%, which is right here. So then I can come back over to Effect Controls, delete the mask. Perfect. So sharpen, I had about 25 points. Depending on what you're shooting on, you may or may not need to do that. I had about 20 points of vibrance. So let's go back to adjustment really quickly. To keep my blacks at about 5% instead of 0. And then my whites at about 85, so bring this down a little bit. And then, we can see before and after. And that is a color correction. For color grade, I bring on a adjustment layer, come down here in my curves, add that S curve, which will probably come back. I make it super subtle. We'll probably come back and edit that later. I want to change the hue of the dog just a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit, so it's a little bit more red. Come down to shadows, midtones, and highlights. I'm gonna bring down my shadows. I'm gonna add some teal and green to the shadows, and this is subjective because it just depends on what vibe you're going for. I'm going for like a hunting vibe, so I'm adding some green, teal to the shadows. I'm gonna add some warmth to the highlights. I'm gonna add a little magenta to the midtones, but not too much, and then bring those up as well, just a hair. Maybe just that much. And this is something you just have to fiddle with. There's no right or wrong way to do. Well, there is a wrong way to do it, but it just takes time to learn what looks good and what doesn't. That's before the color grade. That's after color correction, color grade.
And that's what we end with.
And if we come over here and we apply the same, let's bring those. There's not really any white in here. Bring those up. Bring those blacks up just a hair. Looks good. Add sharpness. Yep, and then I can just drag that across, and then everything's gonna look the same throughout the entire video. You don't want different color grades on different clips. You wanna make sure everything's the same. And there's times where you might have to come back and actually dial it down. Like there's times where it's like, oh, that, you might like the fur looks different. So you can change that stuff, but what you don't wanna change is this. You can change shoes and stuff in color grade, but don't change this because that'll really change the look. And so there won't be that continuity.
Okay.
Anyway, that's color grading.
All right. That's, I think, it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Just to say a thank you at the end, Joel, thank you so much for helping with this project. Thank you so much for your insight and sharing that with us. If people are interested in your work, I'll have it linked down below. Again, thanks, Joel.